Why, hello, chess players. It's Craig Marr bringing you another edition of Mastering the Mental Game. Today's topic is the bad bishop in the Queen's Gambit opening. We're talking about the light squared bishop here. Now, when I first started out playing in my first year, the Queen's Gambit declined. This was my favorite defense for black. But I realized that, on the second move, oh boy, I'm locking in my bishop, and that is not a good thing. This was my favorite opening. Now, because I'm playing e6 on the second move, is black lost? No, because you have the knights, the rooks, the bishops. You have a lot of other pieces. So I mean, it's kind of a minor discomfort, and this is why the Queen's Gambit is such a good opening for white, because black is often stuck with a bad bishop, and he has to figure out a way to develop that bishop. Now, it's important to recognize a bad bishop. It's when a bishop is locked in by its own pawns and can't escape. A good bishop, on the other hand, is one that can move about freely. And it's kind of like, outside the pawn chain. Now, if this bishop could magically come out here, hey, I'd be a happy camper. But the fact is, on the second move, black kind of is voluntarily locking in his own bishop. Now, I'm a queen's pawn player. I'm a 1d4 player. So my basic goal, if I have the white pieces, is how can I try to lock that bishop in, or make this, for the entire game, a bad bishop. And today we're going to learn to recognize a good bishop versus a bad bishop. And it's often a decisive advantage when your opponent is stuck with a bad bishop. So let's take a look at today's game, where I had the white pieces against expert Ira Pohl, POHL, rated 2196. This game was played March 1st, 1987, round 4 in San Jose, California. So I opened up 1d4, and Mr. Pohl replied with d5. And now I replied with c4, and then we get this position with black to move. Now, a lot of you guys are thinking, hey, I got a free pawn. Why can't I just take that thing, Because I don't see immediately how white is going to capitalize on this. But the fact is, guys, that, right away, if I really want, I can just, I can just check and get the pawn back. Because, whether you interpose the bishop, the queen, the knight, c6, I'm going to recapture that pawn, and black has been forced to give up his center. So this is not a pawn that you can just grab and hold on to. So most people do not just go grab that pawn. Most people play as my opponent did, and they play the more standard e6 in this position. So now I continue developing with knight c3, knight f6, knight f3. Now again, notice that we're both developing our pieces toward the center, because this is where the action is at. Bishop e7. Now black is preparing to castle into safety. So here I want to develop this piece, and then I want to castle. But if I play a move like e3, which a lot of you might think is good, I'm now locking in voluntarily my own bishop, and that is not good. So here in this position I play an even better move. I get the bishop outside the pawn chain before playing e3, else that bishop is going to be locked in. That bishop is going to be locked in. So I play the bishop outside the pawn chain, and then I play e3. And then I don't have the problem of a bad bishop. So now, castles is a standard move, and it's a good one. You're bringing your king out of harm's way. Now I play e3, you know, and now I can have a good bishop, two good bishops now. But black still has this little bit of a problem here. So that's why I think white is better and, you know, can create some problems. So now it plays b6. You got to develop that bishop. Now I decided to capture here, capture the pawn, and then black is capturing back. Now the book move is knight d5, which I think is better. It's probably better to recapture with the knight, you know. But anyway, this is not too bad either. Sometimes you got to be prepared when your opponent gets out of book a little bit, you know. Because after a while, eventually you're always going to be out of the book, because you can't continually go book for 20 or 30 moves. It just doesn't happen. So anyway, this is a very good outpost for the bishop. Notice that I would go bishop e2. It's passive. At least here I'm heading straight up toward the king here with bishop d3 here. Bishop b7, I'm not really too happy about this. It looks like, you know, the bishop is kind of hemmed in by its own pawn, which, you know, I really feel bishop e6 is better, and that at least the bishop, you know, is not too bad, and, you know, has good scope maybe from the e6 square. So I'm not sure if I like bishop b7 that much. Okay, now I play queen c2. Now I actually, you know, might be threatening bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, and bishop captures pawn. That's what I'm threatening. So that is a threat that my opponent sees. h6. He's also creating left, in other words, an escape hatch for his king, just in case there's some back rank problem in the future. The king has a way out, you know. So h6 is an important move to do, and it's a dual purpose move. Now I could take the knight, but it's better probably to maintain this pin here, you know. Now this move I'm not really that happy about, because later on, you know, he gets stuck with this bad bishop. But this seems like a perfectly reasonable move at the time, yet I think it might be a little bit inaccurate. So now I castle, and this is a good thing to do in 90% of the positions. It's good to castle and get the rooks connected and ready to play with the rooks. Knight bd7 is good. You gotta develop those pieces, every one of them. Now the reason I went here instead of here, I want to put pressure on the d pawn and try to prevent counterplay with c5 here. What am I doing here? You know, what am I doing? Well, this is a waiting move. I see that he's kind of giving me the square. You know, I'd like to put a knight in there, but it's good to put a bishop in there. So you always want to look for holes in the position. You always attack weaknesses in chess. You don't attack strong points. So this, I realize, is a weak square. And now this is very interesting. He's tempting me to sack the bishop, in which if I take that, I'm going to get check, and I'm going to get 3 pawns. Yet, I don't. That's a very nice strategy, because he's tempting me to sacrifice unsoundly. You know, white really doesn't get that much if I sacrifice. So I took here, because we have to realize one thing, that in the middle game, the bishop and the knight are practically equal and interchangeable pieces. So now he took here, and now I decided, well, let's keep some pressure with the bishop. And I was glad I did, because this bishop later becomes a very strong piece here. Knight f6. Here we have what I consider to be, I call this the Caro-Kann pawn structure, because in the Caro-Kann variation, you have the pawns being exchanged, and then you have this structure. And one thing I learned about the Caro-Kann pawn structure is that the 2 bishops are not necessarily an advantage in this particular structure. And that's why I very willingly parted with the bishop. Now black has the 2 bishops, but they're not an advantage in all positions, and this is one of them. So in this position, you know, there's really not that much for me to do, so I decided, oh well, let's just wait and improve the position. Now, this is a hard thing for most of you to do. You know, most of you, you know, you like to attack, you like to be active, but there's a lot to be said for the player that waits patiently for the opponent to make a mistake. So that's the idea behind h3. Also, I want to create luft. Luft is an important concept. You gotta watch out for your back rank at all times. So now, this is kind of a waiting move, you know, because there's not really that much to do here. I don't have any pawn breaks. I can't play e4. So sometimes you have to just wait patiently. Here I got kind of aggressive with the knight. This is good. Now maybe I'm threatening, you know, to sack here. I'm threatening to put pressure here. This knight is very strong and very dangerous. And now we're wondering, what is white doing? What were my thoughts here? Well, I'm just basically waiting. Sometimes you make a lot of waiting moves, and surprisingly, your opponents often go wrong in the absence of a direct threat here. And there is no direct threat. I'm not threatening anything here. So your opponents often go wrong Like this move is kind of a lemon, you know. He should probably be, you know, thinking about c5 or something. But now, again, you know, I'm trying to get him to play b5 here, which would weaken all kinds of squares. And guess what? He plays the move I kind of wanted him to play. Now, this bishop is just looking terrible. Just like a terrible piece. Now, there's a new concept I want you guys to learn, and that is sometimes you can get a winning position without winning material. See, black's position is just slowly declining every single move. It's just getting worse and worse. And I haven't really won a pawn. I haven't won the exchange. I haven't won anything. But what I have done is I've gained a lot of good squares for my pieces. And that's a good thing to do. So having achieved, you know, the kind of inferior pawn structure with all kind of holes all over the place. This is Swiss cheese over here, my friends. This is what I love. Swiss cheese. Holes all over the queen side, especially here, 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 all over the place. So I have a lot of targets here. It's a target-rich environment. So black is just kind of putzing around, not really, you know, doing much. And that's what I want, you know. Now I see this is a great hole for my pieces, so I retreat the knight, and now I have, you know, a real target to enter with the knight. And look at that bishop. God, it's just looking horrible, you know. It's a tall pawn. It's just a very bad piece. So now black kind of, you know, is not sure what to do and loses patience. Knight e4. Knight takes knight. Now, see, if he takes with the rook here, I have knight e5 and then maybe f3, and that rook here, you know, is going to be in super trouble. So he takes, pawn takes. And now, I just want to pause for a minute for you to figure out what to do here. Anyway, I came in with a knight, and now, since the knight is so strong, he decides to take the knight. And now, this is a very strong capture because I'm making this bishop permanently bad, and I'm taking advantage of this big hole on d6 where my pieces are coming in. Now this is a very, very strong invasion. Now this f5 move just isn't a good move. It's kind of overextended. Now I have a very strong move. Bishop check. Very strong because you cannot take the bishop because the rook is hanging. And then, so he moves the king.